In the quiet stillness of the forest, where the wind carries secrets and the trees hum ancient melodies, there exists a language deeper than words, a whisper that binds all living souls. It is a language understood not by ears, but by hearts. This is the story of how the wild speaks to those who listen, and how the bonds between animals and humans can transcend the ordinary, touching the very essence of what it means to be alive. In the quiet stillness of the forest, where the wind carries secrets and the trees hum ancient melodies, there exists a language deeper than words, a whisper that binds all living souls. It is a language understood not by ears, but by hearts. This is the story of how the wild speaks to those who listen, and how the bonds between animals and humans can transcend the ordinary, touching the very essence of what it means to be alive. The moon hung low, casting a silvery glow over the dense canopy of trees. Shadows danced on the forest floor, and the air was thick with the scent of pine and earth. Somewhere in the distance, a lone wolf lifted its head and let out a haunting howl. The sound echoed through the valleys, a mournful yet powerful cry that seemed to pierce the very fabric of the night. It was not just a call to its pack, but a message to the world, a reminder that even in solitude, there is a yearning for connection. The wolf, a creature of instinct and intuition, moved gracefully through the underbrush. Its paws barely made a sound as it navigated the terrain, each step deliberate and purposeful. The forest was its home, a place where it had learned to survive, to thrive, and to listen. For the wolf understood something that many had forgotten. The wild speaks in whispers, not shouts. It is in the rustle of leaves, the trickle of a stream, and the distant call of a bird that the secrets of the earth are revealed. As the wolf ventured deeper into the woods, it came across a clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center stood a young doe, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The wolf paused, its golden eyes meeting hers. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. There was no predator, no prey, only two beings sharing a silent understanding. The doe's ears twitched, and she took a tentative step forward. The wolf remained still, its breath visible in the cool night air. Then, with a soft whine, it turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving the doe to wonder if the encounter had been real or a dream. The wolf's journey continued, each step taking it further into the heart of the wilderness. It crossed paths with other creatures, a family of foxes playing near their den, a wise old owl perched high in a tree, and a curious raccoon peeking out from behind a rock. Each meeting was brief, yet meaningful. The wolf did not linger, for it knew that its purpose was not to dominate or disrupt, but to observe and connect. It was a guardian of the forest, a silent witness to the lives that unfolded within its borders. As dawn approached, the sky began to lighten, painting the horizon in hues of pink and orange. The wolf found itself at the edge of a cliff, overlooking a vast expanse of land. Below, a river snaked through the valley, its waters glistening in the early morning light. The wolf sat on its haunches, its gaze fixed on the horizon. For the first time, it let out a soft, almost imperceptible whimper. It was not a sound of sadness, but of reverence. The wolf understood that it was part of something much larger than itself, a tapestry of life woven together by threads of instinct, survival, and love. The forest began to awaken around it. Birds chirped, squirrels scampered, and the wind carried the scent of blooming flowers. The wolf rose to its feet, its muscles rippling beneath its thick fur. It took one last look at the valley before turning back toward the trees. Its journey was far from over, for the wild was vast and its whispers endless. But the wolf knew that as long as it listened, it would never be truly alone. And so, the wolf disappeared into the forest once more, its presence a reminder that the soul's whisper is not bound by species or language. It is a universal call, a thread that connects all living things. In the wild, where the wind carries secrets and the trees hum ancient melodies, the wolf's howl remains, a testament to the enduring power of connection and a promise that those who listen will never be forgotten. The wolf's journey through the forest had been one of quiet observation, a testament to the unspoken bonds that tie all living beings together. As it moved deeper into the woods, the trees grew denser, their branches intertwining to form a canopy that filtered the sunlight into a mosaic of golden beams. The air was alive with the hum of insects and the occasional rustle of leaves as creatures went about their daily lives. Yet, amidst the symphony of nature, there was a stillness, a presence that seemed to draw the wolf forward. It was here, in a secluded glade, that the wolf encountered a sight that would linger in its memory. A young girl knelt beside a wounded deer, her hands trembling as she gently stroked the animal's flank. The deer's breathing was shallow, its side marred by a deep gash that glistened in the dappled light. The girl's eyes were filled with tears, but her touch was steady, a quiet resolve emanating from her small frame. She whispered soothing words, though the deer could not understand their meaning. It was not the words that mattered, but the intention behind them, a pure, unyielding desire to comfort and heal. The wolf watched from the shadows, its golden eyes reflecting the scene before it. It had seen humans before, but never like this. Most were loud, their presence disruptive and foreign. But this girl was different. She moved with a gentleness that mirrored the forest itself, her actions guided by an innate understanding of the delicate balance that existed between all living things. The wolf felt no urge to flee or attack. Instead, it felt a strange pull, a curiosity that compelled it to step closer. The girl noticed the wolf almost immediately, her breath catching in her throat. For a moment, fear flickered in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by something else, recognition. She did not move, did not speak, but her gaze held the wolf's, unflinching and steady. The wolf, in turn, remained still, its ears twitching as it assessed the situation. There was no threat here, only a shared moment of vulnerability and trust. The deer, sensing the wolf's presence, let out a soft, pained bleat. The girl's attention returned to the animal, her hands moving to tear a strip of fabric from her dress. She pressed it gently against the wound, her touch as light as a feather. The wolf stepped closer, its movements slow and deliberate, until it was within arm's reach of the girl. She glanced at it again, her expression a mixture of awe and gratitude. It was as if she understood that the wolf was not there to harm, but to bear witness to this act of compassion. Minutes passed, the forest holding its breath as the girl tended to the deer. The wolf sat nearby, its presence a silent reassurance. Eventually, the deer's breathing steadied, its eyes fluttering closed as it succumbed to exhaustion. The girl sat back, her hands stained with blood, but her face serene. She turned to the wolf, her lips curving into a faint smile. "Thank you," she whispered, though the words were unnecessary. The wolf tilted its head, a gesture that seemed almost human in its understanding. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the girl rose to her feet, her movements careful so as not to disturb the sleeping deer. She glanced at the wolf one last time before turning to leave, her footsteps soft against the forest floor. The wolf watched her go, a strange warmth settling in its chest. It was a feeling it had never known before, one that transcended instinct and survival. It was the feeling of connection, of being part of something greater than itself. The wolf lingered for a while, its gaze shifting between the sleeping deer and the spot where the girl had disappeared. The forest seemed quieter now, as if holding its breath in reverence for the moment that had just unfolded. Eventually, the wolf rose and continued its journey, its steps lighter, its heart fuller. It carried with it the memory of the girl and the deer, a reminder that even in a world governed by survival, there is room for kindness, for understanding, and for love. And so, the wolf moved on, its path illuminated by the dappled light filtering through the trees. The forest whispered around it, its secrets carried on the wind, its stories etched into the bark of ancient trees. The wolf knew that it would encounter many more souls on its journey, each with their own story, their own whisper. But for now, it carried the memory of the girl and the deer, a silent testament to the power of connection and the unspoken language that binds all living things. The wolf's journey carried it deeper into the forest, where the trees grew taller and the air seemed to hum with an ancient energy. The encounter with the girl and the wounded deer had left an indelible mark on its spirit, a quiet reminder of the bonds that transcend species and circumstance. As it moved through the dense undergrowth, the wolf's senses remained sharp, attuned to the subtle shifts in the environment. It was here, in the heart of the wilderness, that it came across a towering oak, its branches stretching toward the heavens like the arms of a wise old guardian. Perched high in the oak was an owl, its feathers a mosaic of brown and gray that blended seamlessly with the bark. Its eyes, large and luminous, seemed to hold the wisdom of countless generations. The owl watched the wolf approach, its head tilting slightly in curiosity. There was no fear in its gaze, only a quiet acknowledgement of the wolf's presence. The wolf, in turn, sat at the base of the tree, its golden eyes meeting the owl's. For a moment, the two creatures simply regarded one another, their silent exchange speaking volumes. The owl was no ordinary bird. It was a keeper of stories, a witness to the ebb and flow of life within the forest. Its perch in the oak afforded it a vantage point from which it could observe the comings and goings of all who dwelled beneath the canopy. It had seen the birth of fawns, the flight of eagles, and the quiet struggles of creatures great and small. Each story was etched into its memory, a tapestry of life that it carried with it wherever it went. As the wolf sat beneath the tree, the owl let out a soft hoot, its voice a gentle ripple in the stillness of the forest. The sound seemed to carry with it a weight, a significance that the wolf could not ignore. It was as if the owl was inviting the wolf to listen, to hear the stories that the forest had to tell. The wolf's ears twitched, its body still as it focused on the owl's presence. Though it could not understand the owl's language, it felt the depth of the connection between them, a shared understanding of the world and its mysteries. The owl spread its wings and glided down from its perch, landing gracefully on a lower branch just above the wolf's head. Its eyes never left the wolf's, their gaze piercing yet kind. The wolf felt a strange sense of reverence, as if it were in the presence of something sacred. The owl hooted again, its voice softer this time, almost melodic. It was a sound that seemed to resonate with the very soul of the forest, a reminder that every creature, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, had a role to play in the grand tapestry of life. The wolf's thoughts drifted to the girl and the deer, their brief but profound encounters still fresh in its mind. It wondered if the owl had witnessed their meeting, if it too had felt the power of that moment. The owl, as if sensing the wolf's thoughts, let out another hoot, this one tinged with a note of affirmation. It was a sound that seemed to say, "I see you. I know your story." The two creatures remained like that for some time, the owl perched above and the wolf seated below, their silent communion a testament to the unspoken language of the wild. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, as if aware of the significance of this moment. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying with it the scent of moss and earth, while the distant call of a bird echoed through the trees. It was a symphony of life, a reminder that every creature, from the tiniest insect to the mightiest predator, was part of something greater. Eventually, the owl spread its wings once more and took to the sky, its flight silent and graceful. The wolf watched as it disappeared into the canopy, its heart filled with a sense of awe and gratitude. It knew that the owl's presence had been a gift, a reminder that the forest was not just a place of survival, but a sanctuary of stories and connections. The wolf rose to its feet, its body humming with a newfound energy. It felt as though it had been entrusted with a sacred duty, to carry the stories of the forest within its heart, to honor the bonds that tied all living things together. As it continued its journey, the wolf's steps were lighter, its spirit more attuned to the whispers of the wild. It knew that the owl's wisdom would stay with it, a guiding light in the darkness. The forest, with its ancient trees and hidden secrets, seemed to embrace the wolf, its presence a constant reminder of the beauty and complexity of life. And so, the wolf moved forward, its path illuminated by the stories it carried, its heart forever connected to the soul of the wild. The wolf's journey through the forest had become more than a mere search for survival. It had transformed into a pilgrimage of connection and understanding. Each step carried it further into the heart of the wilderness, where the trees seemed to whisper secrets and the earth pulsed with a rhythm that resonated deep within its soul. The encounter with the owl had left the wolf with a profound sense of purpose, as though it had been entrusted with a sacred duty to carry the stories of the forest within its heart. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of amber and crimson, the wolf found itself standing at the edge of a vast meadow. The grass swayed gently in the evening breeze, and the air was filled with the soft hum of crickets and the distant call of a nightingale. It was a place of tranquility, a stark contrast to the dense, shadowy woods from which the wolf had emerged. Yet, even here, the whispers of the wild were present, carried on the wind and woven into the fabric of the land. The wolf stepped into the meadow, its paws sinking into the soft earth. The scent of wildflowers filled its nostrils, a sweet and heady aroma that seemed to beckon it forward. As it moved through the tall grass, the wolf noticed a figure in the distance, a fox, its coat a fiery red against the golden backdrop of the setting sun. The fox was crouched low, its ears twitching as it focused on something hidden in the grass. The wolf paused, its curiosity piqued. The fox, sensing the wolf's presence, turned its head and met the wolf's gaze. For a moment, the two predators regarded one another, their eyes locking in a silent exchange. There was no hostility, only a mutual recognition of the other's place in the world. The fox's tail flicked, and it let out a soft yip, a sound that seemed to carry a note of invitation. The wolf, intrigued, moved closer, its steps slow and deliberate. As it approached, the wolf saw what had captured the fox's attention, a small, injured bird, its wing bent at an unnatural angle. The bird's chest rose and fell rapidly, its tiny eyes wide with fear. The fox, though a natural hunter, made no move to harm the bird. Instead, it sat back on its haunches, its gaze shifting between the wolf and the bird, as if waiting for something. The wolf understood. It was not just a moment of survival or instinct, it was a moment of choice. The fox, despite its nature, had chosen compassion over predation. The wolf, moved by the fox's actions, stepped forward and gently nosed the bird, its touch careful and precise. The bird fluttered weakly, but the wolf's presence seemed to calm it. The fox watched, its expression unreadable, as the wolf carefully lifted the bird in its jaws and carried it to a nearby bush, where it would be safe from further harm. The act was simple, yet profound. It was a reminder that even in a world governed by survival, there is room for kindness, for empathy, for connection. The wolf and the fox stood side by side, their differences momentarily forgotten, united by a shared moment of compassion. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the meadow in a soft, silvery light. The fox let out another yip, a sound that seemed to carry a note of gratitude, before turning and disappearing into the tall grass. The wolf remained for a while, its gaze fixed on the spot where the fox had vanished. The encounter had left it with a sense of fulfillment, a quiet joy that seemed to radiate from within. It was a feeling that transcended the physical, a reminder that the bonds between creatures, no matter how fleeting, are what give life its meaning. As the stars began to the night sky, the wolf turned and made its way back toward the forest. The meadow, with its whispers of compassion and connection, would remain etched in its memory, a testament to the enduring power of the soul's whisper. The forest welcomed the wolf back, its ancient trees standing tall and silent, their branches reaching out as if to embrace the returning traveler. The wolf's journey was far from over, but it carried with it the echoes of the wild, the stories, the bonds, the moments of connection that had shaped its path. It knew that the whispers of the forest would always be with it, a guiding light in the darkness, a reminder that even in solitude, it was never truly alone. And so, the wolf moved forward, its heart full, its spirit unyielding, forever connected to the soul of the wild. The wolf's journey through the forest had become a tapestry of moments, each thread woven with the whispers of the wild and the bonds it had formed along the way. From the haunting howl that began its path to the silent communion with the owl, the tender encounter with the girl and the deer, and the unexpected act of compassion shared with the fox, the wolf had carried the stories of the forest within its heart. Now, as it stood at the edge of a tranquil lake, the moon casting a shimmering path across the water, the wolf felt a deep sense of fulfillment. It was as if the forest itself had guided it here, to this place of reflection and closure. The lake was still, its surface a mirror reflecting the star-strewn sky. The wolf approached the water's edge, its reflection rippling as it dipped its muzzle to drink. The coolness of the water was soothing, a gentle reminder of the simplicity and purity of life. As it drank, the wolf's thoughts drifted to all it had experienced, the connections it had made, the lessons it had learned, and the whispers it had heard. Each memory was a thread in the fabric of its existence, a reminder that it was part of something far greater than itself. The forest around the lake was alive with the sounds of the night. Crickets chirped, their rhythmic song blending with the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hooted, its call echoing through the trees. The wolf lifted its head, its ears twitching as it listened. The sound was familiar, a reminder of the wise keeper of stories it had met beneath the ancient oak. It was as if the owl was calling to the wolf, a final acknowledgement of the journey they had shared. The wolf turned its gaze to the sky, where the moon hung full and luminous, casting a silvery glow over the landscape. It was a sight that filled the wolf with a sense of peace, a quiet understanding that its journey, though marked by solitude, had been one of profound connection. The forest had been its teacher, its sanctuary, and its companion. It had shown the wolf that even in the wild, where survival often reigns supreme, there is a deeper truth, a truth rooted in the bonds that tie all living things together. As the wolf stood by the lake, a soft rustling sound drew its attention. From the shadows emerged a figure, a young doe, her eyes gentle and trusting. It was not the same deer the wolf had encountered before, but there was something familiar in her presence, a reminder of the girl's kindness and the fox's unexpected compassion. The doe stepped forward, her movements graceful and unhurried, until she stood beside the wolf. For a moment, the two creatures simply stood together, their breaths mingling in the cool night air. The wolf felt no urge to hunt, no instinct to dominate. Instead, it felt a deep sense of kinship, a recognition that they were both part of the same tapestry, their lives intertwined by the whispers of the wild. The doe lowered her head to drink from the lake, her reflection shimmering beside the wolf's. It was a moment of harmony, a quiet testament to the beauty of coexistence. As the night deepened, the wolf knew it was time to move on. Its journey was not over, but this chapter, this sacred moment by the lake, felt like a conclusion, a perfect circle that brought its story full. The wolf turned away from the water, its steps slow and deliberate, as if savoring the final moments of this chapter. The doe watched it go, her eyes filled with a quiet understanding, before she too disappeared into the shadows. The forest welcomed the wolf back, its ancient trees standing tall and silent, their branches reaching out as if to embrace the returning traveler. The wolf moved through the trees, its heart light, its spirit unburdened. It carried with it the echoes of the wild, the stories, the bonds, the moments of connection that had shaped its path. It knew that the whispers of the forest would always be with it, a guiding light in the darkness, a reminder that even in solitude, it was never truly alone. And so, the wolf continued its journey, its steps steady and sure. The forest stretched out before it, vast and endless, its secrets waiting to be discovered. The wolf's howl rose into the night, a sound that carried with it the weight of all it had learned, all it had felt, and all it had become. It was a howl of gratitude, of reverence, of love, a final whisper to the wild that had shaped its soul. As the sound faded into the night, the forest seemed to sigh, its whispers blending with the wind, carrying the wolf's story to the stars. And there, beneath the watchful gaze of the moon, the wolf disappeared into the trees, its heart forever connected to the soul of the wild. The journey would continue, the whispers would endure, and the bonds would remain unbroken. For in the wild, where the wind carries secrets and the trees hum ancient melodies, the soul's whisper is eternal.